Welcome back. This is the Northwest Tank Line Super Bowl show coming to you from Radio Row, New Orleans Convention Center. It's the Mojo Bob Marjanovich talking NFL, talking the big game Sunday featuring the Kansas City Chiefs going for the three-peat against the Philadelphia Eagles. And our next guest is a man who went up against the Kansas City Chiefs on a couple of occasions this year in his rookie year as a running back with the Las Vegas Raiders, Dylan Laube. Dylan, welcome.
Thank you for having me, man.
Nice to have you on board. So before we get talking about the Raiders, you got an amazing journey. I mean, not too many guys from New Hampshire make the NFL.
It's a few of us.
There's a few of you. You know, there's not. I didn't say a lot. I just said.
Yeah, it's a few of us.
You ever heard the name Joe Fleming? Come on, man. New Hampshire history. You got to know this.
Joe Fleming. It sounds so familiar.
He played for New Hampshire. Played about 5 years, probably 6 or 7 years in Canada. Well, probably before you were born.
My coach can be so pissed.
He will.
He's going to be
Okay.
so pissed.
But here's the thing about Joe Fleming that really freaked me out. He played D-line in the Canadian Football League. I think he's outstanding defensive player one year.
Okay.
6'3", 285.
Okay.
The dude was drafted in the National Hockey League by the St. Louis Blues. I'm not joking. It was back when the draft was 12 rounds.
Okay.
But he was drafted in the 12th round by the St. Louis Blues.
That's awesome.
Think about how many D linemen you know that are drafted by an
and are skating like that.
Well, he probably was lighter, I would imagine, when he was playing hockey.
I mean, he was probably still
the athleticism to be drafted by an NHL team
and play the CFL.
And play in the Canadian football and play football. Not too many guys. Hey, there have been a lot of duo sport guys. Not many duo sport guys in
hockey and football. Never.
That was really,
oh, my God, that's awesome.
So before we get to your rookie year at the Raiders, and we talk about Pete Carroll as well, man, I look at your history, and you look at your bio. New Hampshire, small school, right?
Always.
And you're out of New York.
Yeah.
Right? Not too many football guys out of New York.
A few guys.
I mean, did you use that as motivation the whole time?
100%.
Yeah.
And you know what's cool, too? There's it's almost like a fraternity of us, too. There's only a couple of us that from New York, New Hampshire. So, when we, see each other playing, and it's just such a small-knit group, too. But that's always kind of been my motivation, too, is always that chip on my shoulder. Of course, I know everyone that says the same thing, but truly, man, from a small school, a small town, man, I've had a lot of doubters. But at the same time, I've had a lot of people that helped me out, too. But at the same time, man, I've always had to earn every single thing that I've done.
Yeah, and that's the one thing is you can use it as motivation, but at the same time, you still got to put all the work in, right?
100%.
And you got to believe, and you have to have eventually somebody who believes in you.
Every day.
So when did you realize at New Hampshire that the NFL might be a possibility?
Well, I'd say when it truly, I always believed in myself, but when it kind of officially hit was probably my junior year was when I had a really good year. I was an All-American, and that's when, agents and people started coming and be, hey, you got a shot here. You could be if you want to declare this year, you could be a priority free agent. I'm like, no, I kind of want to bank on myself this year, my senior year, and kind of want to take it a step up. And that was kind of when I knew. And then my senior year, man, I had a great year. I got invited to the Senior Bowl, Combine, and I did every single day.
Did you miss out on nil in the big payday? I'm just kind of thinking, hey, you know what? A guy who's a stud running back who get drafted in the National Football League probably make a couple of bucks on nil transfer to maybe a Power 4 school.
It was funny because that junior year, too, I was getting buzzed, too, where, hey, if you're on the portal, you got some, maybe, with the NIL and stuff, there's a lot of fishy stuff out there.
Oh, of course.
I wasn't in the portal, but I was getting some word from other people from a middleman saying, hey, if you come here, you could get this much and all this stuff. And I was like, sounds pretty nice. I had a long discussion with my father, and his biggest thing was, hey, are you playing for money or are you playing for because you love this game? And I was thinking, the only team that truly believed in me from the start was New Hampshire. So I want to finish where I truly started.
Good for you, man. And that's props to you because I just see so many of these guys selling out, and
it's not always
it's for the money, right?
On the other side, man.
And it's not always greener on the other side because with the money come expectations, right?
Mm-hmm.
People expect you to be there. But to me, I honestly, and we're kind of diverting here talking about NCAA football, but it's just it's the Wild West right now. And, when I hear these guys, and I'm sorry, I started going off on this with Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
I'm not going to play in the bowl game because I'm up for the NFL draft. Are you kidding me? The reason you're playing in the NFL draft is because these brothers of yours that you played 4 years with, and now there might be their last game. But you know what? I'm going to sit this one out, fellas. I'm sorry. And I know there's the possibility of getting hurt. Remember the linebacker out of Notre Dame or the defensive end?
Yep.
He got hurt in a bowl game, and it cost him, and he wound up in Dallas. But
it's
still.
Football.
You could get hurt.
Football, man.
Hey, dude, you get hurt walking across the street.
Right,
seriously,
right
you get
here.
wiped out right here. Somebody bumps into you, twist an ankle, adios amigo.
Yeah, it's football, man.
But it's just like that. To me, that's disappointing. And props to you for sticking it out and finishing off at New Hampshire. You get drafted by the Raiders in the 6th round, correct? In the 2024 draft. How important was it? And trust me, I've talked to a lot of guys about this. To get drafted, to have that organization believe in you, rather than going to camp as an undrafted free agent and being just another guy.
100%. My whole goal, so I made goals throughout the whole process, and one of my goals was to get drafted. Just because that just shows I feel like a team truly believes in you and they are investing in you. While if you're a priority free agent, you're almost like a penny stock where okay, we have a shot with him and he might be great one day, but who knows? So, but at the same time, just having that team of Vegas and Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco kind of being the guys that be hey, we are banking on this kid and we truly trust in him. And it's kind of crazy too, for coming from New Hampshire to Vegas is completely two different ends of the complete spectrum. It's not even close. And they're because you have to think too, if you're drafting guys in Vegas, you have to think of guys that can handle Vegas. Because Vegas is, if you know anything about Vegas, it is a crazy city.
Yeah, and that's great. Great point you made. You have to check out the guy's character as well. I was going to ask you, any CFL teams come kicking?
There was, I don't know the names of them, but there was two teams that came for my pro day, and they're hey, any shot. Yeah. If something happens,
we'd be interested.
We got a spot for you.
That's cool. See if we're going to find out if you're on a neg list. I'll make a phone call with our GM. When you go to L.A., or pardon me, L.A.
Vegas.
Thank you.
No, it's all
when you go to Vegas, you talk about a chip on your shoulder. Being one of those guys from a small school. But let's face it. I look at these rosters sometimes. A lot of times I look at rosters and I see there's a connection with somebody that we have in Canada, whatever. And most of the Canadian guys are Texas A&M, Commerce, the smaller schools, New Hampshire, you name it, right? You get to those rosters in the NFL, Georgia, Alabama, Washington, all the Power 4 schools.
Yep.
I imagine you still use that as motivation because a lot of people going, dude, where do you play at New Hampshire? They got football at New Hampshire. You know where I'm going with that.
I got that the whole process from the Senior Bowl and Combine. But the craziest thing is when you get in the NFL too, when you put on that silver and black, which for me, nobody cared if you went to Division 3, 2, or 1 or a big school. It was all right, if you could play, then awesome, perfect. So it was kind of just cool seeing that it was just a flip like that.
Dylan Laube is our guest, Vegas Raiders running back. First year, and I can probably guess on this one, and I've talked to so many guys who made the transition in whatever sport. I imagine for you the big difference was when you're at New Hampshire and you've got to go out and, maybe you're going up against a linebacker against whatever school. It might be a 17, 18-year-old kid, right? Yeah. You crack through the middle in the NFL. There ain't no 17-year-old.
No.
That's one of the big things that I've heard about guys. It's a lot of times when you're playing junior hockey or even football in college, sometimes you're playing kids. He goes, every person you play against in the pros is a man. And not only a man, but probably the best man on that team that he played in college.
And a true professional, too.
Yeah.
It's funny because there's guys on our team that are either 21-year-old kids or a 28-year-old father with a wife and 3 kids. It's nuts. You are going against grown men and kids at the same time, but it's the best specimens in the world. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of
cool. How would you evaluate your rookie year?
It was definitely a up and down season. A couple bad plays, a couple good plays. I was more of a special teams factor type of guy. It was definitely a tough year. It was a tough year of mental ups and downs, inactive, active. Didn't know where I was where my role was. But at the same time, as the season went on, if you watch me on special teams and in practice and all this stuff, I was making plays more and more because I was getting more and more comfortable. And I think that's the difference with the greats, is that mental, where if you could flip that switch and truly be a professional and truly be prepared and always prepared to be ready to go at any point, I think is kind of the...
Do you know, it's interesting when you're talking about being a pro and flipping that switch and all that. It's funny, my color analyst with the BC Lions broadcast, Julio Caravetta, always makes this point. He says, and he played pro in Canada, quarterback. He says the second year around, he goes, you're so much more comfortable. You know not only what to expect on the field, but off of it. You know how to get around town. You know where to get groceries. You know if your kids are in school, whatever. It's just you get so acclimatized and so much more comfortable that it allows you to focus on the task at hand, which
100%.
is playing football that second year around. And imagine that'll hold true for you this year. Like, you're not going to be in awe, or you're not going to be trying to wonder where am I living? Is it close to the facility? How am I getting? What am I doing with the car? What's my rent going to cost? Now you know, right?
First year was, you were like, what am I going to expect? Of course, there's like players that you train with and like, expect this, expect that, but you don't know until you truly face it. And going to that year 2, man, it is a completely different year. So much more comfortable. You know the players, you know the staff, you know the facility, you know the area. Like, that was my first time truly in Vegas. I'm like, am I going to be on the strip the whole time? Like, what's the plan? But no, dude, you're outside of the strip, man. It's a completely different thing, and that year 2 helps so much.
And the other thing, too, we had an O-lineman in BC. His name was Joel Figueroa, right?
Okay.
We call it the FIG scale, right?
Okay.
So FIG, when you were a rookie, it was hey you.
Okay.
And then it was, 36, 72, whatever your number was. And when you got to like level 3, you actually knew your name, right? So it's like, you know what I mean? You go through that, hey you, to 36,
to hey Jeff,
hey Dylan, how you doing, right? So whatever, right? So it is pretty funny that way. Dylan Laube is our guest for a couple more minutes talking Raiders football with the second-year running back out of New Hampshire. Pete Carroll, your new head coach. I know him from Seattle, not personally, but I obviously went down and covered camps down there, covered the Seahawks games for many years. Man, you talk about enthusiasm. You're talking about a guy who's going to bring energy. Pete Carroll is going to do that for you guys.
Yeah, man, he brings the juice. I've been saying it all day, too. Like, you see the guy, you wouldn't think he's 70-something. No. You would think he's mid-50s because he just has so much energy and juice and enthusiasm. He's just a man you're like, all right, I cannot wait to play for him.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll look forward to seeing you next year, man. Get a few more carries. You never know. Just get that little crack in the door,
100%.
Open, and then kick it open. Hey, Dylan, thanks for doing this. If people want to follow you on Instagram or X, how do they go about it?
Yeah, it's Dylan Laube for Instagram, and then for X, it's Dylan_Laube, Laube.
Great stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.